You can't afford this restaurant, my mother-in-law Constance announced. Loud enough for neighboring tables to hear. Why don't you sit at the bar like the staff does? We'll send over some breadsticks. Her country club friends tittered with laughter while my 7-year-old daughter Emory tugged my sleeve, her eyes brimming with tears. What Constance didn't know, what I'd hidden for 3 years, was that I didn't just afford this restaurant. I owned it. The Waverly was Boston's most exclusive dining establishment. 3 Michelin stars, a 6-month waiting list, clientele that included senators, celebrities and old money families like the Harringtons, who believed their name entitled them to the best table in any room. My husband Grant had made a reservation for his mother's 70th birthday. The entire Harrington clan was present. Grant's sister Whitney and her hedge fund husband Philip, his brother Clayton and his socialite wife Margot, assorted cousins, and of course, Constance herself, the matriarch who'd spent 8 years reminding me that I'd married above my station. Mommy, are we poor? Emory whispered, her small hand gripping mine. No, sweetheart, we're just fine. Then why does Grandma say those things? Because Grandma doesn't know everything she thinks she knows. Constance overheard. What was that, dear? Speaking of knowing things, I know what Grant's salary is. I know what that little bakery of yours brings in. And I know this restaurant charges $400 per person. So unless you're planning to wash dishes to cover your share. Grant shifted uncomfortably beside me. Mother, please. I'm being practical, Grant. You've always been too soft on her. Someone has to set realistic expectations. I'd heard versions of this speech for 8 years. At our wedding, where Constance had worn white. At Emory's christening, where she'd loudly questioned whether the baby was really a Harrington. At every holiday, every family dinner, every encounter where she could remind me that a girl who'd grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Sooty didn't belong at the Harrington table. I'd stayed quiet because I loved Grant, because I wanted Emory to know her grandmother, because I kept hoping Constance would eventually accept me. But watching my daughter's face crumple, watching her ask if we were poor because a bitter old woman needed to feel superior, something finally snapped. It didn't say a word. I simply pulled out my phone and sent one text. 30 seconds later, the restaurant manager, distinguished man named Frederick, whom I'd hired personally, appeared at our table. Miss Harrison, he inclined his head respectfully. We weren't expecting the owner tonight. Should I prepare your private dining room? Chef Lauren would be honored to create a custom tasting menu. The table went silent. Constance's champagne flute stopped halfway to her lips. Whitney's mouth fell open. Clayton actually choked on his bread. The owner. Grant's voice was barely a whisper. He turned to me. Caroline, I was going to tell you, I said calmly. I just hadn't found the right moment. I don't understand. Your bakery is one of 11 businesses I own, including this restaurant. I acquired the Waverly 3 years ago when the previous owner was facing bankruptcy. Frederick remained at. Ma'am, shall I continue? Thank you, Frederick. We're fine at this table, but please send over a bottle of the 1996 Dom Perignon on the house. Of course, ma'am. He disappeared. With practiced discretion, Constance had recovered enough to speak. This is some kind of joke. No joke. Own the Waverly. I own the building it's in. Own the 2 buildings on either side. Met her eyes directly. I also own the catering company you used for your anniversary party last spring, and the florist and the event space. Every vendor you praised to your friends? That's impossible. You're a baker. I started as a baker. I scaled into business. Turns out the girl from Sooty learned a few things about turning flour and sugar into money. Grant was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Caroline, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to know you loved me. Not my portfolio, and because I glanced at his mother. I knew exactly what would happen if your family found out. They'd Either claim I'd deceive them or find some new way to diminish what I'd built. You've been lying to us, Whitney snapped. To Grant, to all of us. Been private. There's a difference. Did any of you ever ask about my work? My goals? My life outside of serving as your family's punching bag? Silence. Built a bakery from a farmer's market. Stand into a regional chain. 12 locations. Annual revenue of $14 million. Then I started investing in distressed properties, then restaurants, then commercial real estate. Pulled out my phone and showed Grant my portfolio summary. My net worth is approximately $47 million. I'm a silent partner in businesses across 6 states. Grant took the phone. His hands were shaking. $47 million, give or take, and you never said anything? Would it have changed how your family treated me? Would your mother have suddenly respected me because I had money? Or would she have found another reason I wasn't good enough? Grant looked at his mother. Constance's face had cycled through shock, denial, and was now settling into something like fury. This is a scam, she declared. Some kind of con. You married Grant to get access to Harrington money, and now you've cooked up this ridiculous story. Constance. Grant's voice was sharp. So, he's lying, Grant. People like her don't build fortunes. They steal them. People like her. I leaned forward. You mean people who weren't born with a trust fund? People who worked 2 jobs through high school? People who started a business with $2,000 in savings and a recipe for lemon bars? I mean people without breeding, without background, without what class, elegance, the ability to announce at a crowded restaurant that my daughter's mother can't afford to sit with the family. Emory was watching everything with wide eyes. I realized I needed to be careful. Whatever happened here, she would remember it forever. Frederick, I called stiffly. He appeared instantly. Please, take my daughter to the kitchen. Lauren can show her how they make the chocolate soul. Of course, ma'am. Frederick extended his hand to Emory with a warm smile. Madam, would you like to see some cooking magic? Emory looked at me. I nodded. He went with Frederick, glancing back once before disappearing through the kitchen doors. With my daughter safely away, I turned back to the table. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not asking for apologies. I'm not expecting changed behavior. You are who you are, but there are going to be some new boundaries. Don't make demands of this family. Constance. I'm not making demands. I'm stating facts. I looked at each person in turn. You will not speak to me or about me with disrespect in front of my daughter. You will not question my worth, my place, or my contribution to this family. You will treat Emory as a full Harrington, not as the child of that woman from C. And if we refuse, Whitney asked coldly, then you'll discover exactly how many of your favorite restaurants, venues, and vendors are owned by that woman from City. Your life is surprisingly entangled with mine. It has been too polite to mention it. That's blackmail. Philip said. It's boundaries. I've spent 8 years being gracious while your family treated me like dirt. I've smiled through insults. I've stayed quiet through humiliation. I've let your mother make my daughter feel worthless. That ends tonight. Grant found his voice. Carolyn, I'm sorry. I have stopped this years ago. I have defended you. Yes, you should have. I was weak. I knew how they treated you, and I kept hoping it would get better on its own. Things don't get better on their own, Grant. People have to choose better. I chose to build something. I chose to protect what I love. I chose to wait until the right moment. I reached for his hand. Now I'm choosing to trust you with the truth. What are you going to choose? He looked at his mother, then at me. I choose you, he said quietly. I should have chosen you louder a long time ago. Constance slammed her napkin on the table. Grant, you're being manipulated. I'm being honest, mother. For the first time in my life, maybe. He stood, pulling me up with him. Caroline is my wife. She's the mother of your granddaughter. She's also apparently a brilliant businesswoman who built an empire while you were making fun of her cupcakes. They're lemon bars. I corrected gently. That's how it started. Lemon bars. Lemon bars. He almost smiled. The point is you've had 8 years to accept her into this family. You chose not to. Now you're going to have to live with the consequences, which are Constance asked icily. We'll see you at holidays, major family events. But the weekly dinners, the constant gatherings, the opportunities for you to belittle my wife, those are done. You cut off your own mother. Setting boundaries. Something I should have done when you wore white to my wedding. Constance's face went purple. She looked around the table for support. Whitney and Philip were carefully studying their menus. Clayton and Margot seemed to be having a silent conversation about escape routes. The cousins were on their phones pretending to be elsewhere. Nobody came to her. Guys, this isn't over, she said. Finally. It really is. I gathered my purse. Frederick will handle the bill tonight. Consider it my gift for your birthday. Constance, 70 years old. That's a lot of time to learn that money doesn't equal worth. Maybe the next 70 will teach you differently. I walked toward the kitchen to collect Emory. Behind me I heard Grant making brief goodbyes, his voice firm in a way I'd rarely heard. In the kitchen Emory was covered in chocolate and beaming. Mommy, Chef, let me stir the soul. And he said, I could come back anytime because you're the boss. That's right, sweetheart. Mommy owns this restaurant. So we're not poor. We're not poor. We're actually very comfortable. Then why does Grandma say those things? I knelt down to her level. Because Grandma measures people by the wrong things. She thinks money and last names and fancy clothes make you important. But that's not true. What makes you important? How you treat people, how hard you work, how much you love. The rest is just decoration. Think you're important, Mommy. You're important too, baby. Gran appeared in the kitchen doorway. He looked different, somehow lighter, like he'd set down something heavy. Ready to go home? Almost. I turned to Chef Lauren. Thank you for entertaining my daughter. Always a pleasure, Miss Harrison. He has good instincts. Perhaps a future chef. Emory giggled. Maybe. Or maybe I'll own restaurants. Like Mommy. An excellent goal. We left through the back in trance, avoiding the dining room entirely. In the parking lot, the cool Boston air felt fresh and full of possibility. Caroline. Grant stopped beside the car. I have so many questions. I know, but they can wait. What I need you to know right now is that I love you. I've always loved you. Not because of what you have or what you've built, because of who you are. Even though I kept secrets, you kept them because my family made it impossible to be honest. That's not on you. That's on us. He pulled me close. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel like you have to hide who you are. Starting now. That sounds like a good plan. Also, you have to teach me about the restaurant business. $47 million. I can't even wrap my head around that. It's just numbers. Grant. Lemon bars and numbers. He laughed. Really laughed, and something that had been tense between us for years finally relaxed. Emory grabbed both our hands. Can we come back to the restaurant tomorrow? Chef said he'd teach me to make creme brulee. Anytime you want, sweetheart. We own the place. We do. We do. He grinned and skipped toward the car, chocolate still smeared on her cheek, completely unaware that she just watched her mother rewrite the family narrative. Constance had announced I couldn't afford to sit at table. The manager had reminded everyone who owned the table. But what really mattered was this little girl who'd asked if her family was poor now knew that her mother had built a kingdom, not through inheritance or marriage, but through work and will and lemon bars. That was worth more than any Michelin star. That was the real legacy.